Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. In the boundless blue expanse of the ocean, there once was an island that was said to exist, Sandy Island. Marked on sea maps since 1908, observed by some captains, and even recorded by scientists, it was located off the eastern coast of Australia, in one of the hidden corners of the Coral Sea. To sailors, it seemed like a waypoint, perhaps even a refuge. But one day, the waters erased its traces. For years, ships venturing into distant seas seemed to confirm the existence of Sandy Island. Cartographers carefully marked the small landmass, adjusted their compasses accordingly, and sailors used it as a reference point for their routes. Yet strangely, those who claimed to have seen the island told differing stories. Some described it as a flat sandy piece of land, while others spoke of a desolate spot with a few trees. However, the real mystery began in 2012. Scientists from the Australian National University embarked on a research expedition in this part of the Pacific Ocean. Their goal was to study the island's geographical structure and geological features. When they reached the location where the island was supposed to be, they found nothing. There was only the vast, endless ocean. The GPS coordinates were correct. The maps were correct. All the data indicated that there should be an island at that location. But before their eyes, there were only waves. They measured the depth of the water and found that there was no landmass beneath the surface. The ocean was too deep in that area for any island to exist. So, what was Sandy Island? A cartographic error? A mirage experienced by old sailors? Or perhaps its existence was the result of a centuries-old illusion? Some argued that Sandy Island had never truly existed. But the memories of ancient sailors, the traces on maps, and the decades of reports made one wonder whether the island had truly existed at one point. However, now even the advanced satellites of the modern world couldn't find any land at that spot. It was as if the island had never existed, or perhaps it had once been there and had been erased by some unknown force. The sea is never truly silent. Even as night falls, the ominous whispers of the waves, the hum carried by the wind to unknown places, tell the sailors old stories. And one of these stories belongs to the cursed waters of Sandy Island. Starting from the late 19th century, ships passing through this area began to experience strange occurrences. Some captains reported that their compasses went haywire when they approached the island. Crew members spoke of the sky suddenly darkening, of fog swallowing the sea, and the air growing heavy. The sea became unnaturally still, and there was a palpable sense of tension on the water's surface. According to records kept by a few captains, within this fog, an invisible force seemed to push them away. It was as though the ocean itself didn't want them to approach the island. Their sails wouldn't fill with wind, their engines malfunctioned, and the waves pushed their ships in the opposite direction. Yet strangely, when these ships returned to shore, Sandy Island was still marked on their maps. In 1895, a French-flagged cargo ship La Boussole lost its way near Sandy Island. The ship's captain, Edmond Duray, was certain he had seen the island on the map and sought shelter there. Afterward, no more news was heard from the ship. Weeks later, a lifeboat was found washed up on the southern coast. No one was aboard, but several words were carved into its wood. "There is no island, but it is watching us." These words quickly became part of a fearsome tale among sailors. Some believed it to be nothing more than a sailor's myth. Yet, as the years went by, strange events continued to occur at the location of Sandy Island. Some ships claimed to have reached the island, but what they saw was different. Some described it as a rocky, desolate land, while others spoke of fine white sands. How could such different descriptions be possible? Why did the island appear differently to each person who saw it? Many old sailors believed that these waters were cursed. Crews navigating here at night often reported seeing vague shadows within the fog, and sometimes hearing whispers coming from the water. While modern researchers have explained these phenomena as tricks of the ocean's atmosphere, the effects of magnetic fields, or sailor fatigue, most of the old captains passing through the area said the same thing. Sandy Island is not just a place, it's a presence. Sometimes it's there, sometimes not. but it never takes its eyes off you. And the most terrifying claim was that ships approaching that spot sometimes returned with only part of their crew. The last words in radio transmissions were always the same: "The fog is coming." For cartographers, reality was simply the borders and coordinates written on paper. Once a landmass was marked on a map, it was considered to exist. Sandy Island was no exception. Since the late 19th century, it had been included in world maps, but by the 21st century, cartographers were confronted with a strange truth. The island seemed to have shifted on some maps. In an age where everything was built on certainty, the idea of a landmass shifting locations between maps seemed impossible. However, researchers studying old maritime charts noticed that the coordinates of Sandy Island had slowly shifted over the years. On some older maps, the island appeared several kilometers to the east, while on others it seemed to have moved west. Even more strangely, on some maps, it was completely absent. The oldest known record of Sandy Island was found in the 1876 report of a British exploration ship. Captain James Ormond, who passed through the area with his crew, wrote that he had seen a faint white landmass on the horizon. However, what was interesting was that the captain's report contained no details about the island. There was no mention of vegetation or any distinctive geological formations. He simply wrote, "There is something there." In the years that followed, different maps showed the island in varying sizes and locations. In 1895, the French included it on their maps, and in 1908 the Germans did the same. However, no precise measurements had ever been made. In the 20th century, technology advanced. Instead of relying on old maritime charts, satellite images were now trusted. In 1979, when satellites scanned the area where Sandy Island was supposed to be, something unexpected happened. No island appeared in the images. At first, it was thought to be a mistake. Perhaps clouds or ocean movements had hidden the island. But scans conducted in the 1990s showed that no landmass could exist in that location. Depth measurements revealed a bottomless ocean trench more than 4,000 meters deep at that spot. This was an impossible situation. Sandy Island had existed on maps for years. Sailors had written reports and captains had claimed to have approached the island. So, what had these people seen? As cartographers continued to examine old documents, they made a much more unsettling discovery. They knew the island was missing from some maps, but they also noticed that in certain documents, the island that had once been drawn had later been erased. On the old maps, there were faded marks, as if someone had deliberately scrubbed out the island. Some thought this was a simple mistake, perhaps just a cartographic error. But if it was a mistake, why had it gone unnoticed for years? Some historians suggested that someone had intentionally and systematically tried to erase the island from the maps. But why? Some sailors and locals claimed that Sandy Island was never an ordinary place. It wasn't just a lost island. It had never truly existed, or perhaps the force that created it no longer wanted it to be seen. In 2012, a research ship from Australia set out to solve the mystery of Sandy Island. This team of scientists and sailors was determined to uncover the truth with the help of modern technology. Either the island existed, or humanity had been living with a huge misconception for years. The ship's route followed the coordinates found on official French maps. While no island appeared in satellite images, the maps still showed the island as if it were there. This was a contradiction rarely seen in history. In the early days of the expedition, everything seemed normal. The ocean was calm, the sky was clear, and the journey was progressing as planned. However, when they neared the coordinates where Sandy Island was supposed to be, everything began to change. A few hours before reaching the designated spot, the crew noticed an eerie silence. The wind had stopped. The sea, contrary to its usual rhythm, was almost motionless. There were waves, but they weren't moving, as if time itself had paused. Finally, when the ship reached the exact location marked on the maps, the entire crew gathered on deck. They fixed their eyes on the horizon. But there was nothing. Only emptiness. No land, no elevation, no waves crashing onto a shore. The ship floated in the middle of deep, endless blue waters, exactly where the island should have been according to the maps. The scientists immediately sprang into action. They began measuring the ocean depth. If the island had truly existed, There should have been an elevation or a submerged landmass beneath the water. But the measuring devices revealed a frightening truth. Beneath this point, there was an abyssal ocean trench, deeper than 4,000 meters. This proved that no landmass could ever have existed here. Sandy Island's existence was impossible. This discovery left the crew in shock. An island that had appeared on maps for decades, reported by captains, and even caused several ships to change course in the past. But now, what had been marked on the maps seemed to have never existed in the real world. Yet the most curious detail was the faint, strange whirlpools visible on the surface of the water. One crew member noticed that the water was moving unnaturally, as if something invisible was disturbing the ocean's surface. Was this just a trick of ocean currents? Or was the force that had erased the island still present here? Despite finding no physical evidence, the scientists believed that something unexplained was happening at this location. The island may have been gone, but its ghost seemed to linger among the waters. Thus, Sandy Island was officially declared non-existent by modern science. But not everyone believed this was a mistake. Maybe it had once been there. But it was no longer meant to be. Sandy Island's non-existence was now officially declared. The 2012 scientific expedition had proven that the location was only covered by deep ocean waters. But how could this be possible? How could an island that had been present on maps for years, claimed to have been seen by certain captains, suddenly disappear as if it had never existed? As these questions remained unanswered, whispers turned into conspiracy theories. Some suggested that Sandy Island had once truly existed, but had been erased by some unknown force. But who or what could have done this? Some researchers speculated that it might have been a volcanic island, gradually swallowed by the ocean over time. However, scientists had proven that no landmass had ever existed at that point. Another theory was that the island had been an illusion. Sailors, influenced by atmospheric conditions, might have mistaken a distant landmass for the island. But this theory didn't fully explain the reports of sailors who claimed to have actually set foot on the island. But the darkest theories were those claiming that Sandy Island had been deliberately erased. One of the most popular conspiracy theories was that Sandy Island had once been a secret military base. Some historians claimed that during the Cold War, major powers, like the US or France, conducted experiments in the middle of the ocean, and this region had been intentionally added to the maps. The island might have been a radar station or a secret nuclear test site. But over time, as technology advanced, it became irrelevant and was completely erased. If this theory is true, the island was removed, erased from maps, and rendered invisible to satellites. These claims, of course, were nothing but speculation. But the truly strange thing was what some old sailors and exploration reports had to say. There were also other eerie stories told by sailors regarding the exact spot where Sandy Island was supposed to be. Some crews claimed they had seen shadows moving in the mist near the island. Were these the tricks of the fog? Or was there really something there? There were rumors of ships vanishing in this area. For instance, Captain Edmond Duré's ship, La Boussole, which disappeared in 1895 and was never found again. In the 1920s, Japanese fishing boats were known to refuse working in this area. The sea here is different. It's like the water is hiding something, they said. Some theories suggested that the island might be connected to another reality outside our world. Perhaps it was a place that sometimes appeared and sometimes disappeared. Was Sandy Island a mistake? An illusion? Or was it once real, only to be erased by some powerful force? Whatever the truth may be, today there is nothing at that spot, but the disappearance of a landmass that was believed to have existed for years, vanishing as if it had never been there, is one of the greatest mysteries of the modern age, and perhaps this secret will continue to hide in the deepest darkness of the ocean. Official statements are clear. Sandy Island was nothing but a cartographic error, a piece of land that never really existed, marked on maps of the ocean, but proven to be a mistake through technological advancements, satellites, and deep-sea exploration. The scientific community asserts that the island never truly existed, a mistake, an illusion, and all that remains is an endless void where the waves of the ocean dance. However, despite this, some old sailors still swear there was something there. Some claim it was an island, others insist something entirely different existed. While some say the island just disappeared, others believe something has taken its place. And all of this has become an undeniable part of the tale. During the quietest moments of the waves, those who saw Sandy Island didn't just describe it as a landmass. In fact, there were conflicting descriptions of its shape. Some sailors described rising cliffs and overgrown vegetation, while others spoke of a place covered in white sand, silent as if nothing lived there. But these were just descriptions. Was it an island, or something else entirely? No one knew. Over the years, many lost faith in whether the island had ever really existed. Yet old sailors continued to claim they had seen something at that spot. But was it just then? Or had it always been there? Was there really an island? Many began to think that Sandy Island might actually be a memory of a forgotten past. Was it a secret military base, a nuclear test site, or an unknown point of discovery? Perhaps the island was simply a reality that had been forgotten or erased over time. A few old sailors still insisted that Sandy Island had once existed in that spot, and that it had somehow truly disappeared. But was it just the island that had vanished? Or was this a place that had been erased from our perception over time? The ocean still pours its waters in the same currents. The spot where Sandy Island once was grows deeper with each passing day, and the sea seems to be repeating only its own past. But some old sailors still swear that there is something true about that island. Some even insist they witnessed this mystery with their own eyes. Whether it was a dream, a lie, or a ghost, no one knows. But deep in the corners of the sea within the unknown, there was truly something. Was it all just a mistake drawn by a cartographer, or the remnants of a secret? A story lost for years, and perhaps this is the forgotten tale of an island that once existed, but was erased from sight.